Charlie Downs is political commentator and is with me now. Charlie, there are plenty of people, I would imagine, who would quite like a winter coat paid for by the state, who've paid their taxes and paid into the system their whole life. But now, of course, it's been given to people who've contributed nothing to this economy.
One would think, yeah. I mean, let's get a really obvious point out of the way first. As of December 2024, there were 354,000 homeless people on the streets of the United Kingdom. Now, you wonder what you could do with £1 million a year for that particular problem. But no, instead we are clothing and feeding and, as you said, giving mobile phones to any Tom, Dick or Harry who turns up on British shores.
I think a lot of those homeless people,
very concerned.
I think a lot of those homeless people, I'm just saying, are perhaps people who are without secure long-term accommodation. They're not necessarily on the streets, but I know exactly the point you're making, and it's a good point, in that there are a lot of people who would be very, very grateful for that kind of attention. And I mean, some of the issues and some of the detail here as well, talking about saying, well, the clothes that they've come over with, they may be wet, or they may be stored, or they may have sort of petrol residue on them, or diesel because of the boats and so on. I mean, if you are someone who's been on a boat at any stage, sometimes your clothes do smell of things. I mean, you can wash them.
Yeah, well, this is the crucial thing to understand, Peter. We can sit here all day and complain about the astonishing sums being spent on these people. But actually, why don't we get to the root of it and look at the laws, the legislation that's actually responsible for these things happening? I mean, from a cursory glance, I found that there are two pieces of legislation that are probably to blame for this. One is Article 3 of the Human Rights Act 1998, which, of course, is linked with the ECHR, which is so often blamed for this problem. This prohibits degrading treatment of refugees, quote unquote. The other is Section 95 of the Immigration and Asylum Act 1999, which also it has provisions for preventing migrants, or asylum seekers, I should say, from becoming destitute. But the point is, we are working with a legislative infrastructure that is not fit for purpose. These laws were passed at a time where no one could have imagined that we would be seeing the kind of scenes that we do on the shores of Britain in 2025, where we do have these fighting age males turning up by the boatload and taking advantage of us, taking advantage of our good nature, taking advantage of these laws, which were set up. A lot of this legislative infrastructure was set up after the Second World War. The doctrine of human rights came out of Nuremberg at a time where there was real fears about the treatment of refugees and the treatment of minorities and so on, quite rightly. But we're in a time now where that's just completely inappropriate, completely out of date, and needs to be overhauled. And we're seeing now the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill coming through, which is supposedly part of Labour's strategy.
Introduced in Parliament today, and this new crime that they're talking about endangering lives to target small boat crossings, do you think that will work in any way? Do you think that will help?
Well, this was the point I was going to make is, sure, they are paying lip service to, quote, smashing the gangs, as they have told us they will since they entered office. Yet, we're seeing no evidence of that. But actually, it's not, it's kind of like treating the symptoms rather than the cause, because Labour are clearly not prepared to strike this problem at the root, which is this, as I've said, outdated legislation like the entire doctrine of human rights, which has atrophied into essentially laws that allow, enable and encourage illegal migration. So until they are prepared to address that, I don't think we're going to see an end to this problem.
It is interesting as well in that they're saying they want to smash the gangs, but the deterrent just doesn't seem to be there either, Charlie.
Well, this is interesting. One of the provisions of this bill that's now coming through is the abolition, scrapping rather, of the Rwanda plan, which, whether you like it or not, was at least an attempt to create a deterrent. Personally, I'm of the belief that a far more wide-reaching deterrent is necessary, because Pew Research Centre in 2017 found that there could be as many as 1.2 million illegal migrants currently residing in the United Kingdom. And until we are prepared to have a conversation, as they are in the United States, about deporting all of those people, a program of what Trump is doing, mass deportations, then I don't think we're really serious about solving this problem. Because if if the world sees that you can turn up to Britain and claim benefits, claim welfare, and take the taxpayer for a ride for the crime of coming here illegally, again, I just don't see how this ends.
Yeah, it's interesting as well with the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, which is going through. I mean, Labour will argue that it will retain the ban on migrants claiming modern slavery, protections, powers to detain child migrants, a string of other controversial measures that the party previously strongly opposed. So are they actually getting tougher in some way?
Well, again, this seems to me like putting a putting a plaster on a knife wound. It just seems like such a kind of mediocre response. Doesn't go nearly far enough. I mean, let's be clear. There are a percentage of people who come across the channel who are genuinely being trafficked. You know, I think that it's easy for us to sit here and say that it's always these kind of fighting age males, which I am guilty of doing myself. I'll put my hands up to that. There are people who are trafficked across.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Channel. Yeah. So hey, you know, maybe this scrapping of the modern slavery provision, maybe that may well do more harm than good to those people. But this is the problem. This is the problem with this, is we don't know who's coming, and that's what's so concerning. We don't know whether these are criminals, whether these are people who are being trafficked, whether these are genuine refugees. And we can't know because they are not going through the proper port of entry where we can check their documents. And that really is, you know, the root of the problem here. But I will come back to the fact that there's really only one reason that somebody would choose to come here illegally, and that is that they don't want their name on the books. Why wouldn't they want their name on the books? Well, it's because they're probably coming here to commit crimes. And so what does the state see fit to do to those people? Well, it sees fit to clothe them, feed them, and give them a mobile phone. Make of that what you will.
Charlie, thanks for your thoughts. That's Charlie Downs there, who's a political commentator. I really appreciate that.